Welcome to Crime in Court. This is the 1996 Menendez brothers trial. We've been reading through the transcripts. This is going to be just a special episode where we are going to go over a recap, or reactions rather, to the DA's most recent announcement from the DA, the LADA, Nathan Hochman, who has from the start seemed adamantly opposed to letting the brothers be resentenced or released. He has so much as said it in his habeas press conference where he absolutely did not support habeas, a new trial, basically and he discredited all of the new evidence, which was a letter that was found from Erik to his cousin Andy years after Andy's death. And then we also have the sworn affidavit, the allegations from Roy Rossello from the boy band Menudo. There are likely other victims of Jose Menendez, which we may hear some more about in the future. I'm not sure, but that seems like that might be the case. Um, so that's kind of where we're at. We just recently had just yesterday, so March 10th, there was a press conference scheduled kind of out of the blue. Nathan Hochman decided to schedule a press conference. Again, this is something that he didn't need to schedule a press conference for, but he basically did the same thing he did last time. It's all the same talking points. He went through a list of all these lies that the brothers told, which later they've all fessed up to. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, there's bad facts in this case, but the brothers have admitted to all of them. So to sit here 35 years later and to make it seem like the brothers haven't done any kind of rehabilitation, they haven't been remorseful. Basically, that's what Hochman said. And he also wants them to basically confess that they lied and made everything up. So let's listen. Or actually, before we do that, I want to make a couple of announcements and then we will listen to just a portion of Nathan Hochman's testimony, or not testimony, press conference. And he, I'm just going to play a portion of it because it's just infuriating to listen to. It's all the same BS gaslighting that he's been doing from the beginning. So we're going to not listen to the whole thing because it's just frustrating, and we're going to move on and hear reactions from family members and some more things like that. But first, I wanted to give you guys a couple of quick updates. So if you could, please hit the like button and let's get started. So the first update I have for you is from Rob Rand. He is a journalist. He was in the courtroom covering this case from trial one, from the start. He actually became part of the case. I totally forgot about this when we watched it the first time. I just listened, or I'm listening. I'm in the process. I'm almost done. But I'm in the process of listening to Rob Rand's audiobook. He wrote a book on the Menendez brothers. And what is it called? I just want to give you the title just so you know. It is called The Menendez Murders: The Shocking Untold Story of the Menendez Family and the KILLings That Stunned the Nation by Robert Rand. And I believe he's like recently updated it too. So there's some new information in there, perhaps. But he goes through chronologically the whole crime. He even like he throws in parts of the testimony as the brother, as he goes through the crime, and he reads through testimony from people. Whoever's it's not Rob Rand doing the voice for the audiobook. I don't know who it is, but Rob Rand authored the book, and he threw in testimony from the trial and really does a really good overview if you guys are interested. Not a ton of new information if you've watched the trial. There's some. He kind of his portion of he became part of the trial was because he was reporting on it and he had notes with the brothers, and then it became, or no, I'm sorry, with Roy Donovan, the one who apparently Lyle confessed to Roy, or what did I say? No, Donovan Goodrow. Donovan Goodrow. What did I call him? Donovan Goodrow is the one who he confessed they both shared their experiences of SA with one another, and later on the stand, Donovan Goodrow denied it, and so Rob Rand came in as part of the case to share, to discuss his conversation that he had with Donovan Goodrow about it, because he admitted it to Rob Rand, but then on the stand he did not admit to it. He actually committed perjury. So that was I totally forgot that Rob Rand became part of the trial in the first time, or the first trial. But anyways, so Rob Rand posted this. He's still advocating for the brothers, which is awesome, all these years later. And he says, new Milton Anderson, the 91-year-old brother of Kitty Menendez, who was the only relative from the Menendez and Anderson families currently opposed to the release of Lyle and Erik Menendez, has died in Illinois. 24 other relatives support the brothers' release after 35 years of incarceration. So there was Milton Anderson and Brian Anderson Sr., who both testified in, or did they both testify? I know Brian Sr. did testify for the state. I can't remember if Milton did or not. All these things are blurring together in my mind right now, but um, they adamantly opposed the brothers getting out. They also sued the brothers, so there's that. So both Milton and his brother Brian, who died in October 2017, testified for the prosecution. Okay, they did. In the penalty phase of the second Menendez trial, supporting the LA County DA's office that was asking that their nephews be put to death. So they were in support of the death penalty for their son, or their nephews, their siblings' sons. They were okay with that. The second trial jury voted for life without parole over the death penalty. Both Milton and Brian Anderson went to probate court in LA in the early 1990s. So this is very shortly after trial, probably, or even I think it was right after trial. They went into probate court arguing that Kitty had survived Jose Menendez by a few minutes and that they should be the beneficiaries of the Menendez estate because of that. It's pretty sick, huh? And then the probate judge turned down the request. That is a picture of Milton with Kitty. And so that is, I mean, we don't want to celebrate someone's death, but at the same time, it's like kind of like it's almost like a sign or symbolism that like maybe we can start to move forward now that the last person in the family is no longer, who opposes the brothers getting out, is no longer on this planet. He's now been reunited with his sibling that he was so adamantly opposed to listening to the actual evidence of the case about her and what she did to the brothers. So, anyways, he is no longer with us, and anyone is no longer opposing the brothers getting out. Another quick update, also from Rob Rand. He says that he has heard reports that the resentencing hearings, so on March 20th and 21st, they might actually still happen, but possibly in April. Whether they do or not, it's crucial to keep advocating. We're closer than ever to justice. That was from Nalani for justice for Erik and Lyle. And so here is Robert Rand's update. He says, will Menendez resentencing hearings really be postponed? I'm hearing some conflicting reports Wednesday night. This was just early March. So we are, this is a recent report. I'm hearing Some conflicting reports Wednesday night that the March resentencing hearing in Van Nuys might still be held. Also, I heard the hearings will happen in April. Stay tuned. So that was from Rob Rand. We might possibly still have the resentencing hearing, even if it's not March 20th, it might be rescheduled to April. So that is a good thing. All right. Now, I know you guys don't want to get angry and whatnot, but we got to do it. So I did not shrink myself. Oh, wait. Yeah, I did. Okay, good. I thought I screwed up. Okay. I don't know why I'm so big on this one. Let me shrink myself here. All right. So that was, all right. Sorry. Let's go. All right. So we have up first, or up next, I should say, is I'm just going to play a portion of this, whatchamacallit, press conference. This is like near the tail end of his press conference, and he's talking about, he just went through like this whole list of lies that the brothers told. Like, oh no, they tried to cover up their crime when they thought they could get away with it. Um, but they didn't originally think that that was going to be the case. They sat there and waited for the cops when it first happened, and nobody called the cops because they all thought it was fireworks. So, all right, here is Nathan Hochman talking after all those lies, what he thinks should happen for the brothers. And just prepare yourself. It sucks. It's gross. He's gross. And that's why I called this Nathan Hochman is a tool.
We lay out this series of 16 of the 20 lies that they have never acknowledged, never showed insight into, never completely accepted responsibility for. By the way, what I just described to you.
Hold on. All right, sorry. Here we go. I wanted to straighten up the screen.
Responsibility for. By the way, what I just described to you was mentioned in a paragraph in the original motion that was filed by the district attorney's office. There was no discussion of exhibiting insight into one's actions or completely accepting responsibility for it in the original motion. So we are basically, in some ways, offering a path to the Menendez brothers. And here's what the pathway looks like. If the Menendez brothers at some point, unequivocally, sincerely, and fully accept complete responsibility for all their criminal actions, acknowledge that the self-defense defense was phony, and their parents weren't going to kill them the night of August 20th when they
he wants the brothers to acknowledge that the abuse didn't happen. He wants them to say, basically lie and say that the abuse didn't happen and that it was all a phony excuse and they had planned it all out and it wasn't out of fear and they're just big fat liars. Then he might possibly consider a path forward for them. That's what he's saying here, and it's sick. Let me back up a little bit.
Sincerely and fully accept complete responsibility for all their criminal actions, acknowledge that the self-defense defense was phony, and their parents weren't going to kill them the night of August 20th when they murdered them in cold blood, acknowledge that they suborned or attempted to suborn perjury in all the various ways I have outlaid. If they go ahead and finally come clean with the court, with the public, with the DA's office, with their own family members, and acknowledge all these lies, and then can be said to have fully and completely accepted responsibility for their actions. In the future, the court can weigh these new insights into making a determination as to whether they now qualify for rehabilitation and resentencing. And the people will do the same. The district attorney's office, if it is presented with these new insights, unequivocal, sincere acknowledgments of all the lies they have told for the past over 30 years, we too, in the district attorney's office, will reconsider whether or not we would want to go forward with a resentencing motion. But for now, while the Menendez brothers persist in telling these lies for the last over 30 years about their self-defense defense, and persist in insisting that they did not suborn any perjury or attempt to suborn perjury, then they do not meet the standards for resentencing. They do not meet the standards for rehabilitation. They have not exhibited the full insights and accepted complete responsibility for their actions. And as a result, just like in the Sirhan case, they pose an unreasonable risk of danger to the community, and the resentencing should not, therefore, be granted. I'm going to stop now. I'll take any questions that anyone has.
So I'm going to stop there. So he cannot withdraw the motion for resentencing. It's already out there. And he makes a statement somewhere. I don't know if that was in there or not, but he does make a statement somewhere in there that he's recommending to withdraw this resentencing request. He can't do that. It's already out there. It's already in the judge's hands. And he can't just make it go away. So, and it's unfortunate for him that the brothers are beyond rehabilitated, that it doesn't help his case at all to talk about that. So, this whole thing was just about lies that they told initially when they were trying to protect the family secret and protect, themselves when the crimes first occurred. So, but they fessed up to all those lies. And at the time of trial, they admitted to all of their lies. By trial one, they admitted to all of their lies. They testified to them on the stand, and they admitted to the family secret, which was the whole reason for the lies in the first place, was to protect that. So for him to say that all these lies, whatever, blah, 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 shut up. Just shut up, Nathan Hochman. You're a tool. I'm just going to keep calling him that. There's really no other way to say it. All right, next. I do have, so we're going to read through a statement, and it's kind of hard to read, so I am going to read it. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to read on the screen. It's just like small font, but I will read this. This is a statement from the Menendez family after Nathan Hochman's disgusting press conference and that the public display of gaslighting that he just put on. So the Menendez family say the Justice for Erik and Lyle Coalition, a family-led initiative advocating for Erik and Lyle Menendez's release, today issued a statement in response to District Attorney Nathan Hochman's recommendation that Erik and Lyle do not meet the standards for resentencing until they deliver an apology. District Attorney Hochman made it clear today he is holding Erik, Lyle, and our family hostage. He appears fixated on the trauma-driven response to the homicides in 1989, with blinders on to the fact that they were repeatedly abused, feared for their lives, and have atoned for their actions. How many times do we have to hear the same attempts to bury who they are today and rip us back to that painful time? Let's be clear, Erik and Lyle are not the same young boys they were more than 30 years ago. They have apologized for their actions, which were the result of Jose's sexual abuse and Kitty's enablement. She also sexually abused Lyle. They had apologized for the horrific actions they took. They have apologized to us, the family members, and they have demonstrated their atonement through actions that have helped improve countless lives. Yet, DA Hochman is effectively asking for them to publicly apologize to a checklist of actions they took in a state of shock and fear. DA Hochman broke his promise to listen to us, keep politics out of this review, and look at the full picture of this case. Perhaps most alarming, however, was his not so veiled insistence that they were not SA'd. He instead sent a message to every young boy who's the victim of abuse that they should not come forward to tell your truth, because he's demanding as much out of Erik and Lyle right now. As a reminder, we are pursuing 3 avenues for release, and we remain hopeful that the judges, the Board of Parole, and Governor Newsom will transcend the political games that governed DA Hochman's recommendation around resentencing. Importantly, we pray they understand the full scope of trauma Erik, Lyle, and our entire family continue to experience, and see the overwhelming available evidence that they are ready to become productive citizens in our society. To learn more about the Justice for Eric and Lyle Coalition and support our efforts, visit justiceforericandlyle.org. That was beautifully said by the family. Here is another. I don't know if this is necessarily it's not an official statement, but on the X page that this is Lyle Menendez's X page, and his ex-wife Rebecca actually manages this, and she put this post out there after the. Oh, actually, she did this morning. She said, "It feels like extortion and blackmail when someone tries to shame, scare, and coerce a survivor into lying and saying that they are not ARD and they were not abused and were not afraid and that their whole experience, which dozens of people have witnessed, did not happen." Right? I mean, there were tons of people that came forward from the family that corroborated all of the abuse. Also, the entire first trial is available on courttv.com for anyone to watch, and when actually watched, it becomes clear that the trial dispels the lies told at that unnecessary press conference today. The trial also explains what imperfect self-defense is, something oddly lost on the elected DA. A fascinating documentary to see is Victim/Suspect on Netflix. It is about women who were brave enough to come forward and report being ARD, only to be charged with lying, essentially because the cops were lazy and hateful. Misogynistic pigs. I added that part. I know the situations are not quite analogous, but hey, if we had to listen to an hour comparing the guys to Saran, the case that DA Hochman always refers to, which is some guy that didn't get out when there was resentencing available or something. I don't know. I don't know the whole case, but he always refers to it. Who, by the way, denies being the shooter or claims he cannot remember what happened, which is pretty much the exact opposite of the guy's case. So his case is not even comparable, is what she's saying. And then she's saying, I can make the analogy to women arrested for reporting their R's. It feels very similar anyway. Onward, the fight continues, and believe survivors. So that was from Rebecca Lyle's camp. Here I have another video that we're going to get into. This is the reaction from Anna Maria Baralt. She is the cousin of Erik and Lyle. She's been very vocal. She has her own TikTok, and I want to say she does TikTok lives, and she also does, I think, Instagram lives. Not really sure, but she does keep the public informed about her cousins and what's going on in their case. All right, let me shrink myself here and get this started. So this is about 4 minutes, a 4-minute interview with Anna Maria Baralt.
For a response from the Menendez family, I want to bring in Anna Maria Baralt. She's the cousin of Erik and Lyle Menendez and a longtime advocate for the release from prison. She's also been a guest here on Top Story before. Anna Maria, we thank you for joining us tonight. I know you just heard the DA there. You heard our conversation here. What is your response to him?
I guess the first thing that I want to say is that in his, and first thing I want to say is thank you for having me. Second thing I want to say is, having watched his press conference earlier, where he was asked, he said that he didn't want Erik and Lyle because they were going to be a danger to society. The idea that the streets of Los Angeles are safer tonight because Erik and Lyle Menendez are behind bars is pure fiction. Second, he really dismisses a lot of they have apologized, they have shown remorse, they have taken full accountability to the public, certainly to everyone in our family. That is also pure fiction. So I don't know that him putting out a list of, essentially he wants them to agree to that his truth, not their truth, not the truth, but his truth, in order for him to support their resentencing, and that is ridiculous.
Do you see the brothers, though, they've been in prison for more than 30 years. Do you see them, though, looking at this offer, if you will, and essentially apologizing for whatever the DA wants them to apologize for, apologizing for those lies that they allegedly told investigators, that they told the police in the lead up to the trial and during the trial? Do you think Erik and Lyle will do that to get themselves out of prison?
I can't imagine that they are going to sacrifice their integrity and their character now in order to provide
even though they seem to be very close to possibly be getting released from prison?
Well, I'd like to remind everybody that.
Well, no, they're going to remain truthful to what actually happened. They're not going to just make some BS up like what DA Hochman is asking them to do. He's essentially asking them to lie. If that is not the truth, and I don't believe that it is, that, they lied about the abuse, then he's essentially asking them to lie, basically, in order for him to accept their resentencing request, or to even think about it, and not even accept it, just to even consider it. It's so demeaning and degrading.
It is not up to the district attorney. It is up to a judge. And we have every reason to believe that this is a very fair judge who is going to look at their records post-conviction. Yeah, and that's also a pretty interesting thing that I'd like to point out, is that when we met with the original resentencing team from the past district attorney's administration, they were very clear with us that resentencing is about life post-conviction. It is about the records post-conviction. It is about what they have done with their lives since conviction. It is not a relitigation of the trial. It is not a relitigation of the events that led up to the trial. So I don't know whether the district attorney doesn't understand that. I don't know if there's a miscommunication about resentencing and what the law provides for in the state of California, but that is a surprise to me.
Do you have any idea how Erik and Lyle have taken the news and the new DA, sort of his pathway, his offer, and his decision?
I haven't had a chance to speak with them today, so I'll be interested to hear their opinion.
You know, we've been talking about sort of the micro issues and the things that affect your cousins and your family. I'd like to go macro for a second now. If you're sort of looking at this from a political perspective, right, the country is changing when it comes to politics, every single state, even your governor. People are saying that he is changing a little bit. Do you have faith in Governor Gavin Newsom that he will honor maybe his history? I know he hasn't given you his word. I know they're reviewing the case right now. But are you concerned if he is thinking about a possible run for the presidency? He does not want to have maybe on the slate out there. He was the governor who released Erik and Lyle Menendez from prison after they had shot their mother and father with a shotgun.
Sure, I am afraid of that. I'm always afraid when a new politician comes into play. We've been used by politicians for decades as a tool. I have great faith in this governor, though, and I think that it was a pretty courageous thing for him to go ahead and initiate the risk assessment, and I'm grateful that he did that. I know that the parole board is not a political arm in California, so I have great faith in them as well as we conduct this risk assessment, and that they get to learn all of the events of remorse that Lyle and Erik have exhibited.
This crime happened in 1989. It's now 2025. Do you think you're going to see your cousins as free men this year?
I really hope so. I really hope so. The world will be a better place with them doing the work that they have started while they've been in prison. They are great advocates for survivors of sexual abuse and childhood trauma. They have a lot to offer this world, and I really hope that they get a chance.
Anna Maria Baralt, a close cousin of Erik and Lyle Menendez, we thank you for joining Top Story tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I mean, great interview. She's a great advocate. She's well spoken on the brothers, and says some says she speaks for the family. She speaks for a lot of us too, in how our frustrations keep growing with this leadership in California. All right, why is this playing? All right.
It was so ridiculous.
All right, so up next I have a clip of I'm sorry, it's small, but I have a clip of attorney Mark Garagos and his response to Nathan Hochman's garbage display. And that's just what I'm going to call it. And what he has to say about that. He's on TMZ doing an interview afterward. So here it is.
It was so ridiculous. It was so over the top. It was really one of the I mean, it was really beneath him as a new district attorney. I would tell you one thing. Has anybody else put together the fact that, I think I said last time when I heard him about his response to the habeas that the 90s were calling, they want their DA's office back?
And it was interesting that Hochman basically laid out what would be like a closing argument from the 90s as if he was prosecuting the case himself back then.
Alex, this is why I love you. I was watching it and I said, this is great. Apparently, Pam Bozanich, who was the prosecutor in the first trial, gave you her closing argument. There's only one problem. Not one, but two juries heard everything. Not one, but two juries heard all of the cross-examination over weeks of that trial about your litany of lies that you talked about. Jurors heard all of that. All of that was cross-examined on. I don't know what he's talking about because both juries rejected 50% of them rejected the murder. So what are you relitigating? Whose rights are you vindicating? And by the way, he kind of also stepped on, I think, one of the more important things here, which is he mentioned that Milton Anderson is no longer alive. He passed away last week. There isn't a single living family member or victim who endorses Hochman's position today, number one. Number two, there isn't a single living family member or victim who was notified of what he was going to do today, which is a violation of Marcy's law.
So none of the family members were notified about this press conference that he just put on, this stupid public display of garbage. And that's a violation of the victims' Marcy law. You're supposed to notify the victims of statements and, public things, public announcements of this nature. And he did not do that.
And he has completely misread the resentencing statute. So for a guy that supposedly did all the hard work, it's astonishing to me that he wants to litigate a crime that two juries already rejected his theory on, that only once they took off the table imperfect self-defense. He keeps talking about self-defense. That wasn't ever given to any jury at any time, pre or post. It was imperfect self-defense. So I ought to at least bone up on the law instead of memorizing Pam Bozanich's closing.
What do you say to him saying, well, they're not embracing and owning up to all the lies?
They were cross-examined for weeks, and owned up to all the lies. Read the trial transcripts. I don't know what he's talking about. I mean, he keeps saying we have the record, we have the record. No, everything he talked about was pre-trial. I don't even understand what he's talking about. By the way, resentencing, this isn't a habeas. Resentencing is focused on what have they done since? What are they doing now? The only reason he keeps bringing up Sirhan is he can't find any other basis upon which to make his kind of crazy decision, which he didn't even bother to tell the family about. Didn't even tell. I'm sitting here. I haven't even been served with his motion yet. I mean, it's just wild.
He's the brother's attorney, and he hasn't received the response yet from the DA, but the DA can go on and put on a press release or press conference and say it for all the world, what liars the brothers are, and make up all this garbage, and not even inform the lawyer of what he's about to say. This is insane. Like, I've never seen such a gross display of negligence as a DA. It's insane that this well, okay, I follow Canton, so Michael Morrissey, but this whole thing is ridiculous.
What is happening with this? Idea the DA's office is in the 90s. Maybe they're using the post office from the 90s.
The resentencing hearing, the only thing that would happen if the judge resentences them to life in prison and takes away without the possibility of parole is that it would go to the parole board. And then the parole board would send it to the governor. But it's at the parole board already because of the governor, so the resentencing is just irrelevant.
You know what's irrelevant was that press conference. That was irrelevant. I mean, you want to talk about irrelevance? And by the way, is this Hochman setting up a run for governor? He sure was taking aim at the governor. I don't understand what he was doing here. I mean, it sure seems as if he was testing out he failed in his last statewide run when he ran as a Republican for attorney general and lost in a landslide to Rob Bonta. Then he changed and became an independent when he ran for DA. You have to wonder, is this guy testing out is this a test run for governor?
All right. So that's an interesting point, and just like in the previous the previous video with Anna Maria Baralt, he asked asked her about Governor Newsom possibly becoming president or running for president. So are they just using this as some political BS? Just let them out already. They deserve freedom. They deserve a second chance. without being under the abusive thumb of Jose and Kitty. All right, so we're gonna this next thing is kind of infuriating. Okay, so if all that stuff about Nathan Hogman wasn't bad enough, this should have you all just irate. So remember, originally when he came on, he's like, "Yeah, I'll meet with everybody. I'll look at it all. I'm not going to make it political. I'm going to, I'm going to read the record. I'm going to do it all and look at, every aspect of this case." And then he dragged it out and dragged it out and dragged it out, and um he just seems to have not even looked at anything in the case and continued just repeating Pam Bozanich's talking points from the 90s. But on top of that, they did say, oh, well, he said he was going to meet with the family, or, whatever family members wanted to meet with him, he said. But then he never made any attempts to meet with them. They had to reach out to him. And then once they did, he met with them, he listened to them. He was not very nice. So let's learn a little bit more about that. This is a news clip um from Good Morning America or something, right? Isn't that what she's from? I don't know who she is. I don't watch mainstream media, but this is this is a news clip where they talk about, this is before the press conference actually, because they're going to reference that they don't know what he's going to do for the resentencing. So this just came out like prior to the DA's press conference for resentencing, but after he already said that he's not for habeas. So sometime in between there.
From LA's district attorney about the Menendez brothers as they fight for their release. And it comes as one of the brothers' family members is slamming the DA in a new letter to the Justice Department. Kana Whitworth is in LA with more for us. Good morning to you, Kana.
Yeah, Robert, good morning. So while we still don't know how District Attorney Nathan Hochman feels about resentencing for the brothers, he has opposed a new trial for Erik and Lyle, who are serving life sentences without parole. And now one family member calling the district attorney dismissive and hostile in a new letter. A major development this morning in the Menendez brothers murder case. ABC News has obtained a letter from the family accusing the district attorney, Nathan Hochman, of being biased and violating the family's rights as victims of a crime.
We're tired of feeling like political pawns, and I know.
This is Tamara Goodell. There was a press conference, I covered it, where it was a Zoom press conference, and it was Anna Maria Baralt and her, Tamara Goodell, Tammy, talking about this case and the brothers and all of it. So you might recognize her from that. So here she is on this segment.
I know that Hochman does really not like that word, but that's what the group feels like now.
Erik and Lyle Menendez were convicted of murder for the 1980.
They feel like political pawns. I cut that up and broke it up. So let me.
His rights as victims of a crime.
We're tired of feeling like political pawns, and I know, I know that Hochman does really not like that word, but that's what the group feels like now.
Erik and Lyle Menendez were convicted of murder for the 1989 slaying of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez. Lawyers petitioned for a new trial in 2023 after they say they uncovered new evidence supporting the claim that Jose had been molesting the boys.
Anybody reasonable can only come to one conclusion. They should be out.
But DA Hochman, who took over in December, recently said he opposes a retrial for the brothers.
Erik and Lyle Menendez had told 5 different versions of the events of what had happened.
He's announced a press conference to be held later today, and the family has called for the pair's.
Okay, so this was in the morning. So this clip came out the morning of the press conference before it took place.
Release for years and is criticizing Hochman for dismissing what they claim is a valid argument for retrial.
They have always taken ownership of what they chose to do, given the circumstances of what went on in their household as they grew up. As a family, we believe that they have served their time.
California's governor, who has the power to grant the brothers clemency, has also ordered a risk assessment to see if they're fit for release. The brothers, in a jailhouse interview last month, said they now have hope for the first time in decades.
It's a very new concept for us, this idea of hope for freedom.
Now, their cousin wants the DA to recuse himself. And while DA Hochman hasn't commented on these recent accusations, he's told us in the past that he's met with family members, examined thousands of trial transcripts and hundreds of hours of videotaped testimony in order to make the best decision. So we'll see what he says.
Yeah. Did he? I don't think he did. All right. Finally, the last thing I'm going to go over is an article basically reiterating some of what we just talked about in that segment about the cousins feeling like so Tamara Goodell is a cousin of the brothers, and she is saying that Hochman was dismissive when they met with him, and he was rude, hostile. He got, he like yelled at them at one point, I believe. So let's see what this article has to say. The Menendez brothers' cousin calls DA hostile, patronizing, and asks for his removal from the case. She said that Hochman's conduct eroded any remaining trust in the DA's office. This is written by Emily Shapiro for ABC News. All right, a cousin of Lyle and Erik Menendez is slamming Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman, accusing him of being hostile, dismissive, and patronizing to the family and asking him to be removed from the case. The cousin, Tamara Goodell, said that Hochman's conduct eroded any remaining trust in the DA's office, and she wants the case turned over to the Attorney General's office. During Hochman's January 2nd meeting with over 20 Menendez family members who want the brothers released, the relatives emotionally share their ongoing trauma and suffering, Goodell said in a letter last week to the U.S. Attorney's Office Civil Rights Division. But she said Hochman proceeded to verbally and emotionally re-traumatize the family by shaming us for allegedly not listening to his press briefings. So he yelled at them and shamed them for not listening to his press briefings. Like, how dare you not listen to me in my press briefings, you dumb victims? And I don't care what you want. That's my impression of him. Sorry. It sounds nothing like him. All right, so Hochman's hostile, dismissive, and patronizing tone created an intimidating and bullying atmosphere, leaving us, the victims, more distressed and feeling humiliated, she said. Goodell alleged Hochman focused on how he was treated rather than the victims. Hochman cared more about how they treated him than how he treated the victims. The lack of compassion was palpable, and the family left feeling not only ignored but further intimidated and re-victimized. Goodell cited that her rights as a victim under Marsy's Law, California's Bill of Rights for Victims, specifically noting it states that victims are entitled to be treated with fairness and respect and to be free from intimidation, harassment, and abuse. One day after that initial meeting with Hochman, Goodell said that she and her son met with Hochman, other prosecutors in the DA's office, and the brothers' attorneys and the family's attorney, and she said that she left that meeting feeling disregarded and disrespected. Goodell said when she raised concerns about the DA office's impartiality, Hochman became visibly agitated, dismissive, and aggressive. Goodell said her son witnessed the DA's abusive, belittling, and unprofessional conduct, further compounding the emotional toll on the family. Goodell also alleged that Hochman said the brother's attorney has represented horrible people. This inappropriate remark reinforced his bias. So it doesn't matter who Mark Garagos has served as an attorney for. It doesn't matter who his clients are. He's a defense attorney. It doesn't matter if they're horrible people or not. That's not the point. Besides, and he shouldn't be saying that, obviously, because that does show his bias. So besides asking for Hochman to be removed and the case turned over to the Attorney General's office, Hochman said she wants Hochman held accountable for his behavior. She said she also wants Kathleen Cady, who was appointed by Hochman as director of the DA's Bureau of Victim Service, removed from the case, and a new unbiased representative assigned to the victim services. Katie was formerly the attorney for Milton Anderson. What? How is that not a conflict of interest? Katie was formerly the attorney for Milton Anderson, the brother who just passed away, Kitty's brother, the one Menendez relative pushing to keep the brothers in prison, and Anderson died last week. Goodell said that when she brought up her concerns about Katie in the second January meeting, Hochman coldly dismissed me and interrupted me, speaking in a condescending and hostile manner. Hochman said in January that Katie is walled off from the Menendez case, but she was working on it. So how is she walled off from the case? That doesn't make sense. The DA declined to comment on Goodell's letter. So Hochman has he has certainly a lot to say at the press conferences, but he has no words when he's being called out on his BS. The Menendez brothers are serving life in prison without the possibility for parole. As we know, this is so the brothers are pursuing three paths to freedom. One is a request for clemency from Governor Newsom. The governor announced in February that he's ordering the parole board to conduct a 90-day risk assessment. Oh, now they're saying it's 90 days. I was originally we were told we don't know. Then it was like it might be 60 days. Then it was like 90 days. Now it's like I don't know. Could take as long as it takes. But for some reason, it's being reported differently. So I don't know. It could be 60 days, 90 days, even longer. Into whether the brothers pose this risk assessment will determine whether the brothers pose an unreasonable risk to the public if they're granted clemency and released. Another path is the habeas petition, which they filed in 2023. They just recently got their response to that. And he was denied. And then the third is resentencing, which is in October. Then LA County District Attorney George Gascon, who lost the election, and now Hochman is the new DA replacing him. So George Gascon, in October, when he was still the DA, announced that he was recommending the brothers for resentencing. The sentence of life or he was recommending that the brothers' sentence of life without the possibility of parole be removed, and they should instead be resentenced or sentenced for murder, which would be a sentence of 50 years to life. Because both brothers were under 26 at the time of the crimes, they would be eligible for parole immediately for the new sentence. So that's how he can come. Oh, ooh, I did not know this. Hold on, we got the letter from Tamara. I didn't know we had it. All right. So this is, oh, don't make me sign into that. I don't have an account. Oh, I don't need it. Okay, good. All right. So this is the letter from Tamara Goodell to the United States Attorney's Office, Civil Rights Section, Civil Division 300 in LA. All right. So, subject formal complaint regarding violation of victims' rights in the Menendez case proceedings. Dear United States Attorney's Office, Civil Division, out of fear of retaliatory consequences, I have been refraining on filing any sort of communication regarding the disappointing and traumatizing treatment my family and I have received from the newest administration in the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office. However, after Nathan Hochman's most recent press conference, this was obviously the one that took place about the habeas, not the resentencing, because that was just yesterday. So this was prior to that. So the press conference on habeas, I am writing to formally lodge a complaint regarding violations of my rights as a victim under Marsy's Law as codified in the California Constitution, Article 1, Section 28, during the hearings related to the Menendez case. My family and I have been victimized twice. First, by the horrific events involving Jose Lyle Menendez and Erik Galen Menendez on October 20th, 1989, and now by the treatment we have received throughout these proceedings. For the past 35 years, we have endured profound stress, anxiety, and depression while seeking justice, all while learning of the horrific emotional, physical, and sexual abuse, including childhood R, that Lyle and Erik both suffered at the hands of their parents. The LADA's violation of Marsy's law during the larger family meeting on January 2nd, 2025. During the joint session attended by 20 plus family members and District Attorney DA Nathan Hochman, our rights as victims were blatantly violated. In a tear filled meeting, numerous family members shared the ongoing trauma and suffering we have endured for more than 30 years. Instead of responding with compassion, acknowledgement, or support, DA Hochman proceeded to verbally and emotionally re-traumatize the family by shaming us for allegedly not listening to his public briefings. His hostile, dismissive, and patronizing tone created an intimidating and bullying atmosphere, leaving us, the victims, more distressed and feeling humiliated. Rather than focusing on the trauma and concerns expressed by the family, DA Hochman shifted the meeting's focus onto himself, making it a lecture on how he was being personally treated rather than an opportunity to hear and respect the voices of the victims. The lack of compassion was palpable, and the family left feeling not only ignored but further intimidated and re-victimized. As the LADA is aware, the California Constitution, Article 1, Section 28B states, in order to preserve and protect a victim's rights to justice and due process, a victim shall be entitled to the following rights. 1. To be treated with fairness and respect for his and her privacy and dignity, and to be free from intimidation, harassment, and abuse throughout the criminal or juvenile justice process. DA Hochman's dismissive, aggressive, and shaming behavior was a direct violation of these fundamental rights, further deepening the trauma my family has endured for decades. The LADA's violation of Marsy's law during a small group conference on January 3rd, 2024. Or was that 2024 or 2025? I don't know. I thought it was 2025. That's probably an error. All right. Immediately following the large family meeting with the LADA and team on January 3rd, 2025, I, along with my son, Lucian Goodell, attended a private meeting with Mark Garagos, Brian Friedman, Nathan Hochman, Stephen Katz, Seth Carmack, and Ethan Milius. I left this meeting feeling completely disregarded and disrespected as a victim. My rights under Victims' Rights 1, 4, and 9 of Marsy's law were once again blatantly violated as outlined below. Number 1, the right to justice and due process. My right to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect for my privacy and well-being was not upheld during this meeting. While I was attempting to raise concerns about the Los Angeles District Attorney Office's ability to remain impartial, Mr. Hochman became visibly agitated, dismissive, and aggressive. When I brought up the potential conflict of interest regarding the appointment of Kathy Cady as director of the Bureau of Victim Services, he interrupted me, speaking in a condescending and hostile manner. Instead of addressing my legitimate concerns, Mr. Hochman aggressively pressed me, questioning what I knew about Kathy Cady's prior work. Wow, what an arrogant prick. I'm sorry, but Nathan Hochman is a tool. Mr. Hochman then accused me and my family of lambasting Kathy Cady in the media. When I clarified that I had not done so, he responded, I may be looking at you, but my comments are directed at others in the room. His accusatory and hostile demeanor further reinforced his bias against my family and our legal representatives. At one point, Mr. Hochman even made an unprofessional and prejudicial statement commenting that Mark Garagos had represented horrible people. This inappropriate remark reinforced his bias and made it clear that he cannot act objectively in this case. I am so glad she wrote this letter. This is well written, too. She had some legal help with this. This is great. Perhaps, probably a Brian Freeman. Perhaps, most disturbingly, my son was present during this entire exchange. He witnessed firsthand Mr. Hochman's abusive, belittling, and unprofessional conduct, further compounding the emotional toll on our family. When I expressed my deep discomfort with Kathy Katie's involvement, given her previous representation of Milton Anderson, the only family member opposed to representing or to race to, the only family opposed to resentencing for Erik and Lyle, Mr. Hochman coldly dismissed me, stating I was welcome to refuse the assistance provided by her office. He offered no alternative support, effectively denying my right to unbiased victim services. Number 2. The right to prevent disclosure of confidential records. My right to prevent the disclosure of confidential records, communications, or privileged information was violated. Kathy Katie, the director of the Bureau of Victim Services, previously represented Milton Anderson gaining access to confidential family information. Despite this clear conflict of interest, she was not removed from this case. On or around December 15th, 2024, Mr. Hochman met privately with Kathy Katie and Milton Anderson weeks before meeting with the 20-plus family members who support resentencing. So he met separately just with Milton Anderson and Kathy Katie, who was representing Milton Anderson. He met with them in December, and he didn't meet with the family until after they requested it, number one, and number two, it wasn't until January. All right. Did I finish reading that? Yeah, this compromised victims' confidentiality and raises serious concerns regarding violations of privacy under Marcy's law. So that conflict of interest with Kathy Katie and Milton Anderson violates victim confidentiality. The right to a speedy trial and prompt conclusion of proceedings. My right to a speedy trial and prompt conclusion of proceedings has not been respected. Since October 2024, there have been 3 delays in judgment and proceedings. The original writ of habeas corpus was filed on May 2023, yet my family continues to experience delay after delay. These continuous delays have inflicted severe emotional and psychological distress, prolonging the pain we have endured for 35 years. Request for action. Given the clear violations outlined above, I formally request the following actions. Kathy Katie be permanently removed from any involvement in this case due to her conflict of interest. A new unbiased representative be assigned to handle victim services for my family. Nathan Hochman be held accountable for his outrageous and abusive behavior, particularly his aggressive and dismissive conduct in front of my son, and Mr. Hochman be removed from this case and the case be transferred to the Attorney General's office to ensure fairness and impartiality. Mr. Hochman's behavior during the January 3rd meeting and the larger family meeting was not only inappropriate but outright abusive. His conduct has caused significant emotional distress and eroded any remaining trust in the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office. I respect this matter to be taken seriously and for immediate action to be taken to address these violations. Thank you for your time and attention to this urgent issue. Please feel free to contact me should you require any additional information. That was a really great letter. This was written March 6th. Damn. So she did write that just before the DA's pathetic PR stunt yesterday. So, I mean, that was a great letter. Good job to Tamara for standing up for victims' rights and for the brothers' rights, because they're victims of this crime and they are in full support of the brothers being released, not just resentenced, but coming home. And their voices should be, I would think, more, their voices should have a little more weight in the DA's decision. And instead, he treats them like, how dare you not listen to my press coverage? Why aren't you listening? Like, what? What kind of arrogant jerk does that? A tool. Nathan Hochman is a tool. And I'm just going to keep saying it, and I'm going to spread the hashtag Nathan Hochman is a tool. Spread the word because more people need to see this and see what a jerk he really is. Thank you guys so much for watching these reactions with me and listening to what's going on in this case. It's insane. And enough is enough, and it's time for the brothers to come home. So, thank you guys for watching. Please hit the like button on your way out if you haven't done so already. Hit the subscribe button as well, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye now.